Hello and welcome to the podcast of which at the time of recording I have not named. I'm thinking Gamer's Guide Through Business, but we will see what ends up becoming available. I am your host, Eric Didier, also known as DidsLive to the internet. I just recently began a business and co-founded a business in the Milwaukee area, Urban Misfit Ventures. We have our own podcast. We have our own sources of media, and we are kind of a influencer marketing media company that also hosts events, does cool things, and we hope to expand a lot of that in the future. But for today, I want to also return from my hiatus, as ever long as it was, on Twitch and begin my time back with this. What this podcast is going to be is once every Sunday at 7 p.m. Central Time, I would love to come and have a live podcast and have viewers engage, have viewers become interviewed, and just, host a whole different bunch of sorts of things on this podcast, whether that's interviewing business leaders within gaming, esports, and streaming, whether that's, interviewing streamers that are going through the long, arduous process of, growing that stream, building that community. There's so many topics that can be touched on within this space, and I really want to be able to dive into a lot of those topics. A few things that I wrote down as notes that I want to kind of touch on in the first few episodes are things like how I got my first influencer deals, knowing what to look for those first influencer deals, knowing how to build a community, knowing where that community sticks. I've been through that process of trying to change it forcefully, letting it happen naturally, and just nourishing those relationships. In fact, I'm still to this day texting a lot of my viewers from my stream years ago on a daily basis. So definitely things to look out for there. Good equipment versus good quality. I think that there is a difference, and I don't think that one necessarily merits the other immediately, as well as setting up multiple income streams. So those are a few topics that I want to get into in the first few weeks. I hope to, in a month's time, have somebody to interview or have viewers to interview or whatever that looks like. There's a lot that I want to go into, and I think this first month might just be me, so you might be stuck with me for a little while, but I want this to be a live podcast that has a lot of interaction through viewership and through my Twitch stream in general. I want this to then be uploaded onto Anchor or Spotify, iTunes, etc. And then I also want this to be on YouTube as kind of a vodcast podcast sort of thing, if that makes sense. But that's kind of going to be the structure of this podcast and what you can look forward to. I think that through my time streaming, I think I'm just going to use this first episode to go through my history and get into some viewer questions that I have that I pulled on Instagram from earlier today, and that hopefully I will not get into too much detail that will inhibit other episodes in the future. But my history on Twitch and streaming, and in what I want to use this podcast for, and how I feel like I can provide value to those that might have some of these questions. I began my streaming journey a long time ago through my old Twitch channels. I think I used the Eric Didier for a while. I know that I used I'm the Dids for a while. I know that I also went through a phase of Nostalgic Tranquility as my Twitch name, and this was before you could change your name or any of that. So a lot of my early success on Twitch was through, I believe, the platforms of I'm the Dids and Nostalgic Tranquility. I think that's where I got a lot of my initial boost, a lot of my initial viewership. There became a point where my I'm the Dids wasn't really where I wanted to see myself brand wise, and as I didn't like it as a brand nomer, so I changed it. I wanted to do a lot of speedrunning. I want to do a lot of retro recap things, and that's why I stumbled upon the name Nostalgic Tranquility. I think that was probably where I had the most success. It actually, I think, became more successful when I kind of took the nomer of the nostalgic part away, and I kind of focused more so on just playing games that I wanted to play. I mean, I did focus heavily on the retro and the nostalgic part, because I think that, a lot of what brings people together and a lot of what I think forced my initial community efforts was just like the wherewithal, knowing that, like, if like we all played video games as kids, like we all had that shared connection, and we all knew that, like, if I played Super Metroid and you guys were like, oh, heck yeah, Super Metroid, I totally love that game. Like immediately we were connected. And I think I wanted to kind of capitalize on that. And I think that it, at the time, really wasn't something that I saw a lot of on Twitch. So I want to take advantage of that. From there, this was again before you were allowed to change your name on Twitch. I was kind of debating whether I keep Nostalgia Tranquility or whether I go back to like just a end all be all rebrand, because I had different handles on Twitter, on Instagram, on Twitch, on Facebook. Everywhere that I had a different handle, and I wanted to change that and just become one thing. So I was doing some searching. Dids is my nickname. It comes from actually my father. I kind of took it from him. He had it as a nickname because our last name is Didier. So it was very much his nickname in high school. They would call him Dids because it's a play on the last name Didier. And now I kind of taken it over. And now I'm known as Dids. In fact, at the office with my co-founders, I'm still known as Dids before I'm known as Eric. I like it. I'm totally down for it. But yeah, so that's where I think DidsLive came from. I was heavily into streaming at that time, and I thought that streaming was where I would find my success. And this was 2.5 years ago, maybe now, maybe 3.5 years ago. And I think that that's kind of where I thought that I would find myself moving forward in my life. So I came up with DidsLive. It was available on every platform. I jumped on it and I took it, and I'm not looking back. Even to this day, I'm still known as DidsLive on all social media platforms. So I think that really was the beginning of my journey on Twitch, and I began very humbly playing just what I wanted to play. That was, at the time, a lot of World of Warcraft, a lot of Roller Coaster Tycoon. I thought that I could be this streamer that was just great and fun and had a good time, and I didn't really think that anything that I did separated myself too much from the next stream, which was kind of, a little bit of what I lacked, but I learned how to bring people together and have a lot of fun. Hands down, I might jump around chronologically here. Hands down, my favorite moment to date streaming was there was a time in my older stream where I had a viewer come to me during a stream. I want to say I was playing Roller Coaster Tycoon, but that's kind of irrelevant. And he put in the chat like, "Sorry, I haven't been in your stream. Lately, I have been diagnosed with leukemia, and I have been in the hospital seeking treatment." And immediately, the first thing that came out of my mouth was like, "Okay, so you tell me what charity we're donating to. What we'll you and I will work together. We will find a charity. We'll stream to raise money for that charity." Obviously, like there's I think part of community and part of bringing people together through this platform is knowing that like there isn't much that I can do as a human being to help this guy. But what I can do is help him through external methods to lift his spirits, because now, especially knowing now that my dad just got out of the hospital with his chemo treatment, being in a good mindset is arguably more important than anything. I think being in those hospitals, you see a lot of like sadness, and while yes, there are a lot of cases that are diagnosed terminally, luckily my case was not. And I don't think his was either. So I think what I wanted to do is really just bring as much positivity into his life as I could. So we found out, I want to say that it was St. Jude's donates to actually the hospital that he went to, was in Vancouver. So we donated, I want to say it was like $1,827 or something like that, but well over $1,000. Actually, the creator of Five Nights at Freddy's came to the stream and dropped $1,000 to it. So that was like the pinnacle moment of my streaming career to date. And immediately I knew that I had clout to be able to make something like this happen, because this was literally like, today I would go about it totally different. The way that I like announced it, prepped it, hyped it, like everything. I would totally do everything differently. A lot of what this was like, okay, I've got maybe 12 people in my stream right now. Yo, guys, next week, 12-hour stream, let's go. And that's like, looking back at it, the fact that I raised that much money is insane and incredibly impressive. And I'm super, super stoked to have been able to do that. So I think that a lot of of what I was able to do at that time was learn that community matters, learn that building a community in the relationship with that community is super important, and just everything that goes along with that. Just being there for viewers so that if they're having a rough day, they can come to my stream and just, go to bed with a smile. I had focused more heavily on like nighttime streams, weekend streams, so that the time that you had away from your 9 to 5, or if you were in school, your 8 to 3 or whatever it was, because they always say whether or not you're a believer in it, like the whole, after 3 o'clock, what are these kids doing sort of thing. And I wanted to provide a sanctuary where they could come and have a good time, interact with people. The most amazing thing that I was able to accomplish was have viewers from my stream that I organically met and organically cultured. Maybe that's not the right term, but they came to my stream, follow and watch and support other streamers that came in my stream. Just the shareability of the viewer was impressive to me and super important to me. And I was able to provide that for a lot of people. And I was able to bring a community together and, called ourselves the Dids fam and all of this stuff. So I think, that's really where I got the knowledge, knowing that community matters, that it's super important. Fast forward a little bit of time, I had struck my first influencer deal. I forget the name of the company exactly, but it was my very, very first one. Before I even get into anything that I pushed on stream, my very, very first influencer deal was just I think they sent me 2 t-shirts and wanted me to post on Instagram. And what's really weird is without any push or anything, those were in my top 5 best performing photos on Instagram that I've ever posted. And it was it blew me away because I know that they didn't really push it either. It was just a smaller company. They just kind of made little $10 gaming themed t-shirts. It was really, really cool to see that. And, it was my first influencer deal. Yeah, send me a t-shirt. Totally fine. Don't need any financial compensation. Don't need any of this. And obviously we'll get into stuff like that in future episodes. But I think that was really my first foray of okay, so now, they came to me. I did not go to this company. So I think then between raising over $1,000 for charity and then being able to pull in these deals as small as they were, for me, that was that, okay, you have this ability to bring people together, to make people smile, and just influence, so that was kind of my first take into influencer marketing, setting up multiple income streams, which again, we'll go into that in a future podcast episode as well. So then more and more deals started to come up. Mainframe was one of the early ones that I had. Clothing company, still love what they do. Their product is fantastic. Code may or may not still work. I'm not entirely sure. I haven't checked in a while, but they were kind of my first attempt and stab at actual code affiliated marketing with kickback. So as I'm sure a lot of you guys know, a lot of the deals on Twitch are, any influencer deal for the most part. Obviously there are some changes based on your popularity and your cloud and whatnot, but typically it's about a 10% discount code, 10% kickback. So I would provide a code, you would get 10% off, and then I in turn would get 10% of that overall purchase price. That's how a lot of your deals will go for those that are going to get in deals or anything like that. But that was my first take into actually having a company behind me that supported me, that loved what I did, that posted photos of me that I took. And this was when I was first getting into photography as well. So there was that going on at the same time. And this was when I was really good at building community. I think one of the biggest pieces for me was, doing 10 push-ups for every follower, which obviously I'm not doing anymore because there's one instance where I had a very popular streamer, I forget his name, host me and raid me for I think the situation was the streamer was on vacation. And this streamer had enough clout that he had 350 people in his chat while he was on vacation, still conversing. And they were basically just raiding random channels that they thought were interesting. So I've been raided with, with not even told by the streamer, just the chat and the mods and all that, by 350 people. And I was just getting follow. I'm looking at this. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of push-ups. But I basically made a deal with them, because after a while it was getting a little rowdy, and I was like, okay, clearly there's like tens of follows happening every 30 seconds. Like, I obviously cannot like do push-ups fast enough to make this happen. So I basically struck a deal. As many as you guys want to stay can stay, but I will be streaming and doing these push-ups in 10 push-up increments to pay back every follow that I was given over the course. I think it took me like 3.5 hours, but I did actually do all of those push-ups. It sucked. I hurt for a very long time. I think my form got a little weak at the end, but needless to say, I still maintain a lot of those relationships from that. And I think, that goes to show that the biggest thing about streaming, and the biggest number of success that I have found within my stream, is if you're going to do something and you're telling people that you're going to do something, do it. The biggest help and benefit to my stream early on was telling people I'm streaming Fridays at 7 p.m. Central, Saturdays at 7 p.m. Central, Sundays at 8 a.m. Central. And I stuck with that schedule for months. And people knew, just like you'll know now, 7 p.m. Central every Sunday. This is when this podcast is going to be happening. No change to that unless I'm with a client or, someone with a business or family comes up. But that is going to be a constant. So that's what I told people, that was my schedule, and people knew that they could trust that I would be live at these times, and it worked. And just like that, I told people, hey, clearly there's a lot of push-ups to be done here. Clearly I cannot do them at the pace that they're flowing in. So here's the deal that we will strike. I will do these push-ups over the course of the next 3-4 hours. And then, actually what is the most interesting thing is, after that stream, I went to the channel. I was able to find out over the course of the 4 hours or whatever who it was, whose channel it was, and what the situation was. And I went to that channel, and they were still doing the raids, but I maintained, I think, like a third, essentially, of those people. So I maintained like 100. It hovered between like 80 and 130 people. Now, obviously, there were influx and all that jazz, but I maintained a lot of those people, and actually maintained a lot of those relationships for like a year plus. Some of them even still today. And I think that was really another pivotal point, where it was just, that was the next lesson I learned. If you're going to do something and you're going to put this thing on there, if you're going to challenge the world to make make them follow you for 10 push-ups, if 350 come in at once, you have to do it. So that was another lesson that I learned really, really early on in my streaming career. It's something that I took with me for actually a very long time, and even to this day. And the reason that my stream did fall off to the point where I chose to take a hiatus is because I wasn't sticking to my schedule. I wasn't doing all of these things. And obviously, like I said, we can get into a lot of these topics in future episodes. But today I want to just introduce myself to the world and just let you guys know what's going on, let you guys know a little bit about my background. And this is only, so far, I've talked way more than I thought I would, and I've only talked about Twitch things. So that's good news in my book. So there's been a lot that has happened in my time off of streaming that I think is really important. I've been going through the process of starting a business and going through those stresses. Obviously, you've noticed I have a lot less hair. Another reason I have a lot less hair, I've shaved my head twice in honor of my dad, who went through chemo and went through having cancer. He's doing well. He's doing very well. I just interviewed him for our businesses podcast, which you can check out, searching Urban Misfits Show. Just absolutely loved that interview with him. He did. I was able to bring out a lot of emotion, which I wanted to. Like, when I went into that, I was in the back of my head, like, I need to make us both cry, and I was able to do that. So that was super, super, super huge. And I had a lot of fun talking with him. But so there's the whole family aspect with that. The whole family aspect with, starting a business and being 25 years old, and now having quit my old job and taken the leap into now starting a business, and now analyzing what, because when I was really big into streaming most recently, this was before affiliate happened. And I think what stunted my growth was I started to be inconsistent with my schedule when affiliates of streaming as an affiliate was released. So a lot of the initial boost was to those that watched me that then became streamers, or that were already streamers that just watched me as well. And then they had a more consistent schedule and a more, promise that was being fulfilled to their viewers. So a lot of my viewers were then spreading across those people, which is not all a bad thing. I told you earlier, I loved that fact that I was able to bring people in and have them watch other people that were in my channel. I love that. So a lot of them found success, and I was finding my viewer count dipping and dipping and dipping because bits were announced and everybody was having fun spending bits, and they were spending them with all of these other people. And I just kind of lost interest for a little while. I wasn't, I was trying to push myself into what's a good game to play versus what game do I want to play. And I was forcing the wrong thing at the wrong time. And I just was beating myself up and streaming way too often and trying to balance work with, an online long distance relationship and all of this stuff. And that's kind of just what got me to not really enjoy streaming for a while. And now I've been watching, things happen, and, you have Ninja now and all of these big streamers. And I obviously will be streaming more on this channel than just this podcast. I would also like to play video games like I used to do. But I love podcasting. I want to grow this skill because I think communicating is like one of the most important things ever. And being able to articulate myself and be able to carry on thoughts and pay attention to not only what I'm saying, but what people I'm interviewing are saying, and find those good questions and pull out good value. And a lot of what my stream was providing value to others already, whether it was the community aspect or, the value prop was changing throughout my stream as my stream changed. But there was always something that people could take away from my stream. And I think that I like that, and I like providing value for others more so than I like receiving it. So that's why I think that coming back to Twitch with a podcast is a huge thing for me personally, and something that I'm really going to enjoy. So moving on to that, I think that's kind of a pretty good bit of me. I am currently still in that same long distance relationship. We are engaged. We've been together for over 4 years now. I'm super excited. We are finally through the K1 process. We are waiting for that answer still. Hopefully that happens soon. But I would like to, at this time, open to my stream chat. If there are any questions that they have, they would like me to answer. I have a few questions on my Instagram that I would love to answer. For those that are interested, I would love to do this, and love to hear what you guys have as well. But since this is also going on platforms like Anchor and whatnot, I think I'm just going to dive right into it. Is it this one? Yes, it is. Okay. F-Stop Creative Studio asks, what games would you recommend a small-time streamer play? And I think that this is a very good question. I will obviously probably end up talking about this with a lot of people that I interview, probably in a future episode of just me, myself, and I. But what games would I recommend a small-time streamer play? And I would love to see viewers chime in as well. Obviously, if you are watching this on Anchor or through the podcast, you can check it out on Sunday evenings at 7 p.m. live and participate in this as well. So hopefully the discrepancy kind of isn't too tight and that you understand that fact. But starting out, small-time streamers, there's a lot of different ways that I would approach this, depending upon what your end goal is and what your current goal is. I think a lot of it is being available to those that are discovering. So I found a lot of success playing games that I remember from my childhood, whether that was Backyard Football, Roller Coaster Tycoon. I got into City Skylines when it wasn't a popular game. I got into chess when it was just starting to be able to be streamed through like chess.com and when people were first starting to get into that. But I found like I would go down maybe like a page. Now back then it was like 3x6. I don't know if it still is, of like games in the browse. So then I would scroll down until I saw like 100 to 500 viewers. And I would find a game within that kind of viewer count that I wanted to play at the time, whether that was scrolling down and finding out that maybe tonight was a City Skylines night instead of a Roller Coaster Tycoon night, whatever that case may be. And I wanted to find a game where, with the audience that I knew that I could pull, which was at the time averaging like 10 to 12, that I could put myself in the top 3 streamers. So that way, if somebody came in wanting to watch the game, I knew that with my personality, I would be able to keep them in for a while, enough to get, I would say, probably about 60% conversion from new time viewer to follower to then long-term follower. And that grew from starting this process out with an average of about 10 to 12 viewers, to having, like, on my City Skyline streams, on my chess streams, like 70 to 120 viewers. So I was able to then pick a game that I saw that I wanted to play within that viewer count bracket, knowing my current audience, and place myself in the top 3 to 5. Because then if I'm not number 1 and that number 1 streamer stops streaming, the people, say 50% of those people want to continue watching the game. So say that person has 60 viewers. I knew that probably 30 or so viewers were going to trickle down. So I used that to my advantage to then say, okay, if I'm number 2, if I'm the second streamer, I am then going to get probably 2/3 of that. So let's just say 20 of those viewers, more than likely. So then within that, I was able to say, I know that as these people come in, and if they engage with chat, I got them hooked. Because I know that I'm able to bring in people, engage with them, make them enjoy their time with me, and end up with a follow at the end of the day. So I knew that that would be that place where I could be. If I was third, okay, the people that maybe didn't, say first streamer leaves, say second streamer's boring and just has a bunch of friends and they're just messing about. Then third, okay, they didn't like who was streaming before, or it was a different language in City Skylines most cases, or whatever the case was. And then they could come down to me, and I was able to provide them with viewer interactions through chess. I was able to invite people to play me in chess through Roller Coaster Tycoon. I was able to invite new followers to have me rename their Twitch name in a guest before things like OpenRCT were a thing. And whatever that was at the time, I was able to bring people in, provide them with a good experience, and just really encourage them to stay. So that is where I think a lot of success early on can be. Now, if you're in the 0 to 5 viewer range on average right now, obviously, that's going to be hard. Obviously, right now I'm looking at 2 viewers. And I'm sure that one of them is my fiance. So, like, right now in the talk shows and podcasts, live shows, whatever category, I'm probably not on the top. But what you can do is make your stream look appealing. Don't overwhelm it. Don't have too much information. Don't have too little information. Show yourself through your overlays. And then maybe there's a bunch of people that have really overdone or underdone overlays, and yours is just simple. It's effective. It works. You have maybe a nice camera. Maybe you have a nice, whatever the case may be. And we'll get into like good equipment versus good quality in a future episode. But briefly touch on it, like, you can make your situation one that looks appealing to others, whether that's unscrewing a light bulb so you don't have too much light hitting your face, or not streaming with a window behind you because that's going to blow out everything but your face, sort of thing. Like, there's a lot of different tips and tricks and aspects to film technique, or whatever the case may be, that you can apply to make your stream look appealing to those on a quick glance. So that's another way to maybe get from 0 to 5 to 5 to 10 and 10 to 20. But like, you should be able to have enough people through your social media accounts, through your family, friends, that can come and boost you up to 5-ish, which then if you apply those other rules, maybe you can find a game that you loved as a kid that you just want to get back into real quick. Super Metroid. I know that's not a good example. I know it's not a right example, but like, say Super Metroid only has 10 people streaming and the top streamer has like 15 viewers. Like, you can cash in on that, So there's a lot of different ways to look at that. And I think that those are definitely a few of how to get started. Izzy.lugo asks, and I would say these are the only 2 actual questions, because the other ones are everything. Okay. Nice. Thank you. Gaming. Okay, what about it? PUBG and Modern Combat 3, 4, and 5. I don't know those games other than PUBG. And new action games, which I don't know how I can answer that in podcast form. So how do I get sponsored? How do you get sponsored? Okay. I'm going to make a whole episode about this, so I'm not going to dive too deep into it. But find companies that you love. Find companies that you already are using. Find companies that you would be okay solely using in that category. And anytime you tweet that you're going live, subtly put that in your photo, in your caption, whatever. I was able to get, I'll just use this one example because, like I said, I don't want to share too much right away. Logitech. I was able to take a picture of their G230 headset, and I think it was the GA10 keyboard. And they were like, the headset was red and the keyboard was RGB, so I made it red and I set it up real nice. It was night, it was dark, it was like really cool. I had the monitor light just looking crisp that night, and I put them together and I took a photo of it and I tweeted it, and it was like this: just got done with this gaming sesh thanks to Logitech G or whatever their handle was or is or whatever. And they actually sent me a direct message like 10 minutes later. Hey, can we use this photo? We really, really like it and would love to create a relationship together. Boom, shakalaka. So that's how I got in with Logitech and still maintain that relationship to this day. That is an example of how you can get sponsored. Another thing to look for, like I think, just like I'll just put the value prop out here, short for this episode, is to know that if you are going to go with a company, that you more than likely, I mean, obviously a lot of them, especially nowadays, will have straight up like NDAs and like non-compete clauses and all this stuff. So like if you're gonna go gun-ho for something, know that you probably won't have anything else in their category. So be very careful with who you have as your sponsors, because if I have one clothing company, I more than likely can't do another. So I was able to, for a while, maintain IntoTheAm and Mainframe. My relationship with Mainframe fizzled out. I now am solely IntoTheAm for my clothing as well, and have had great success. Sold, I think at this point, like thousands of dollars of their product over the last 2.5 years. So like, know that if you're going to want to start to get sponsored, know that you're not going to be able to probably have anything else in that category. Logitech. If I took a photo and posted a photo of a Corsair keyboard or mouse or anything, I would probably get a pretty unfortunate message from those at Logitech. So you have to be careful with those things. You know, you obviously want to be able to bring sponsors in, but if they look at your feed and they see you just buying every brand's keyboard and posting a picture with a Razer keyboard, then next week with a Corsair keyboard, then the week after with the Logitech keyboard, they're probably going to question your intent. So stay strong, stay with the right intent, stay knowing that you probably will end up with a non-compete. And you should, even if they don't give you a non-compete, approach the relationship with a non-compete so that you can grow your relationship with that company to become a very high-tiered sponsor. So those are the tips that I would have for that. Since I have not seen anything else pop up in the chat, I am going to give my outro piece and just say that I thank you for making it this far. Like I said, I don't know yet the name of this podcast as I film this, but I'm thinking The Gamer's Guide Through Business is going to be close to where it lands. I think I really do actually like that. Maybe I just tweak a little bit of it. But I like it a lot, and I think that that provides value within just the title, Gamer's Guide Through Business, or Streamer's Guide Through Business maybe, but I kind of want to keep my options open is the hard part. So like gamers is even a term where like, okay, maybe in the future it doesn't become a gamer stream. So, you know, I just want to make sure that my naming is proper. So yeah, I don't know what this is going to be named yet, but I got until Wednesday to figure it out, so that should be fun. But thank you all so much for watching and for being a part of this episode. I'm super excited to see where this goes from here. I'm super excited to just interact with all of you guys. If you are listening or watching and you want to be on the show, hit me up. Send me a message at DidsLive, every platform at DidsLive. or whatever the case is, email, contact@DidsLive.com. Like, hit me up. I would love to have you on the show. I would love to come up with some topics. If you want to come to me, say I have this idea of what we can talk about, where can we provide the value to the listeners and both of our audiences, that would be super, super cool. But yeah, that's really all that I got for today. Thank you so much for being a part of this beginning of a new journey for me. I want to stream on Twitch more often, more consistently. So Sundays at 7 p.m. Central US time is going to be when this happens. And then, like I said, Wednesdays hopefully will be the upload to Anchor and to YouTube. So yeah, thank you. And until next time, I'll see you on the internet.